This show is part of OnePlace, a daily network of focused briefings across the stories people follow most.
Welcome to today's roundup. We have a heavy slate of stories today, ranging from tragic domestic violence cases to high-profile federal indictments. Let's get right into the details of these developing headlines.
A Wisconsin woman allegedly killed her boyfriend over dinner.
A Texas father faces murder charges for infant death.
An Austrian man pleaded guilty to Taylor Swift plot.
James Comey is indicted for threats against President Trump.
A drunk driver killed a father during motorcycle ride.
A Pennsylvania mother was shot while helping a victim.
An Oklahoma father fled a fatal crash involving family.
A quadruple murder suspect wants to represent himself now.
Starting in Wisconsin today, in a truly shocking case out of Lac La Belle, Wisconsin, 27-year-old Michaela Clough is facing first-degree intentional homicide charges after allegedly stabbing her boyfriend, Lucas Roche, to death. The catalyst for this violence was apparently a disagreement over dinner plans. According to the criminal complaint, Clough wanted to go out to eat on a Friday night, but Roche arrived at her apartment with chicken drumsticks and seasoning, intending to use her air fryer instead. This change of plans sparked a verbal argument that turned physical. Prosecutors say Roche grabbed a knife by its blade during the dispute, and Clough allegedly pushed the knife into his chest, piercing his heart. When police arrived, they found Roche on the floor, and Clough reportedly admitted to the stabbing immediately, appearing more irritated than remorseful.
The details from the police report are chilling, particularly Clough's reported comments while being transported to the station. She allegedly told officers that she should have just gone to the bar and that the whole situation was irritating. She even remarked that if Roche's parents didn't hate her before, they certainly would now. Perhaps most disturbing is the testimony from a neighbor and the landlord, who claimed Roche had expressed fear of Clough just a week prior. He reportedly told a neighbor to take down his full name in case something happened to him, mentioning that she had previously bitten him. Clough is currently being held on a $2 million cash bond. This case highlights a tragic escalation of domestic tension into a fatal encounter over something as mundane as a home-cooked meal versus a night out.
Now to a Texas tragedy. In Baytown, Texas, a father named Christopher Jenkins has been charged with capital murder following the death of his 7-week-old son. The details provided in the probable cause affidavit are harrowing. Jenkins allegedly admitted to investigators that he spiked the infant onto a bed like a football because the child was crying too much. He told police that the baby bounced so high that he landed on the floor. After the fall, Jenkins reportedly scooped the boy up and shook him to see if he was still alive. During a walkthrough with investigators, Jenkins used a specialized investigative doll to demonstrate his actions, even asking if he could throw the doll to show how his son flipped across the bed. A witness also reported hearing Jenkins tell the crying infant to shut up during the ordeal.
When emergency responders arrived at the apartment, they found the infant unconscious, not breathing, and with pink fluid coming from his mouth. Despite their efforts, the child was pronounced dead. Initially, Jenkins tried to claim he simply found the boy unconscious after a nap while the mother was in a different apartment. But his story eventually crumbled under questioning. He told investigators that something just clicked in his mind because there was too much crying. This case is a devastating example of extreme child abuse and the tragic consequences of a parent losing control. Jenkins is now facing the highest level of criminal charges in Texas for the July 2025 slaying. The use of the Sooty doll in the investigation provided a graphic and undeniable reenactment of the violence that led to this young life being cut so incredibly short.
Moving to international news. In Austria, a 21-year-old man known as Baron A has pleaded guilty to plotting a terror attack inspired by ISIS that targeted a Taylor Swift concert in Vienna. The plot, which was thwarted in August 2024, led to the cancellation of 3 sold-out performances of the Eras Tour, devastating thousands of fans who had traveled from around the world. The defendant admitted to his role as his trial began, with his attorney stating that he deeply regrets his actions and considers it the biggest mistake of his life. Authorities revealed that the suspect intended to use knives or homemade explosives to kill as many people as possible among the tens of thousands gathered outside the Ernst Happel Stadium. The U.S. provided critical intelligence that helped Austrian officials make the difficult decision to cancel the events to ensure public safety.
The planned attack drew terrifying comparisons to the 2017 Manchester Arena bombing at an Ariana Grande concert, which claimed 22 lives. While the Vienna plot was stopped before any blood was shed, the impact on the community was profound. Swifties turned the city into a massive gathering of solidarity, trading friendship bracelets and singing in the streets despite the cancellations. Baron A faces up to 20 years in prison for terrorist offenses and membership in a terrorist organization. He is being tried alongside another individual, Arda K., though only Baron A was charged specifically in connection with the Taylor Swift plot. The case serves as a stark reminder of the persistent threat of extremist violence targeting large-scale cultural events, and the vital importance of international intelligence sharing in preventing mass casualty incidents before they can be carried out.
Next, a federal indictment. Former FBI Director James Comey has been indicted by a federal grand jury in North Carolina for allegedly making threats to harm President Donald J. Trump. The indictment centers on a social media post from May 2025, where Comey reportedly shared an image on Instagram featuring the numbers 86 and 47. Prosecutors argue that in the context of current events, this was a clear expression of intent to do harm to the president. Comey faces 2 counts, including knowingly and willfully making a threat to take the life of the president and transmitting a threatening communication in interstate commerce. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche emphasized that threatening the president is a grave violation of law, especially during a time of heightened political tension and previous incidents of violence against elected officials in the United States.
Current FBI Director Kash Patel issued a strong statement following the indictment, accusing his predecessor of disgracefully encouraging a threat on the president's life. Patel noted that as a former director, Comey should have been fully aware of the consequences and the weight his public statements carry. The investigation was described as a rigorous effort by the DOJ and FBI partners to follow the facts. U.S. Attorney Ellis Boyle added that no one is above the law, regardless of their former position. This legal action marks a significant moment in the ongoing friction between the former director and the current administration. If convicted, the 65-year-old Comey could face serious federal prison time. The case highlights the legal boundaries of political speech and the serious nature of threats directed at the highest office in the country.
Shifting to Washington State. A tragic incident in Spokane, Washington, has left a family shattered after a drunk driver allegedly killed a father during a motorcycle ride with his son. Keena Cox is charged with vehicular homicide and hit and run after she reportedly blew through a stop sign and slammed into Dusty Ryder. Dusty's 18-year-old son Harley was riding directly behind him and witnessed the entire horrific event. He described his father's bike exploding upon impact and seeing his father lying on the ground. Cox allegedly attempted to flee the scene, but was detained by police just a block away. Investigators found that she had both alcohol and central nervous system depressants in her system at the time of the crash. Dusty Ryder, a father of 4 who had just married in October 2025, was killed instantly in front of his son and a friend.
The Ryder family is now seeking justice as Cox has pleaded not guilty to the charges. A judge has set her bond at $250,000, with a trial date scheduled for June. Dusty's mother, Shelley Oliver, spoke about how family was everything to him, and how this act of impaired driving has completely wrecked their world. Witnesses at the scene corroborated the account of the high-speed collision and the immediate fire that followed the impact. The family has launched a GoFundMe to help with expenses, and has vowed to stay in it for the long haul to ensure Cox is held accountable. This case serves as a painful reminder of the devastating ripple effects of driving under the influence, turning a routine family motorcycle ride into a scene of unimaginable trauma and loss.
Now to Oklahoma. In a heartbreaking case of negligence and cowardice, 43-year-old Elliot Lincoln Binney of Oklahoma has pleaded guilty to manslaughter and child neglect. The charges stem from a January 2024 rollover crash where Binney, who admitted to taking a gulp of vodka while driving, flipped his vehicle while his wife and 3 children were inside. The crash ejected his 16-year-old daughter Shelby from the car. Instead of staying to help his dying daughter or his injured wife and other children, Binney fled the scene on foot. Police found an open bottle of vodka at the site of the accident, which occurred during poor weather conditions while Binney was driving recklessly and passing vehicles in a no-passing zone. Shelby later died from her injuries, and the rest of the family had to be hospitalized for their wounds.
As part of a plea agreement, prosecutors dropped a reckless driving charge, and Binney now faces a recommended sentence of 2 to 5 years in prison, followed by 5 years of probation. Tulsa County District Attorney Steve Kunzweiler highlighted the gravity of Binney's actions, noting that he abandoned his family in their moment of greatest need after causing the catastrophe himself. The community has been deeply affected by the loss of Shelby Binney, and the details of her father's flight from the scene have added a layer of outrage to the tragedy. The sentencing will finalize a case that is focused on the lethal combination of alcohol, high-speed driving in rain-slicked conditions, and the total failure of parental responsibility. It is a somber conclusion for a family that was torn apart by a single, avoidable moment of intoxicated recklessness.
Next, a hero story. In Parks Township, Pennsylvania, a mother of 3 named Jessica Hilliard is being hailed as a hero after she was shot and killed while trying to protect another woman. The incident occurred outside Nikki's Quick Six bar when Hilliard heard a woman crying out for help. The woman had reportedly been jumped outside by 36-year-old David Dunmeyer. When Hilliard and several others stepped outside to intervene, Dunmeyer allegedly opened fire into the crowd, discharging 7 rounds. Hilliard was struck multiple times in the chest and died from her injuries. 3 other people were also hit, with 1 remaining in critical condition. Dunmeyer was arrested at the scene and faces charges of criminal homicide, attempted homicide, and aggravated assault. Hilliard's sister described her as someone who always stepped in when someone needed help, a trait that ultimately led to her final act of selflessness.
The loss of Jessica Hilliard has left a massive hole in her community, and for her 3 children. A fundraiser set up for her family emphasizes that she acted with incredible courage, putting herself in harm's way to protect a stranger from violence. Dunmeyer is scheduled for a preliminary hearing in early May as the legal process begins. This story has resonated deeply because it captures both the worst and best of humanity, a senseless act of violence met with an immediate, instinctive act of bravery. While the shooter remains in custody, the focus remains on Hilliard's legacy as a protector. Her family and friends are mourning a woman who is known for being strong and deeply loved, whose life was taken because she refused to look the other way when someone else was in danger.
Finally, a Tennessee trial. Austin Drummond, the man accused of a quadruple murder and the kidnapping of an infant in Tennessee, has filed a motion to represent himself at his upcoming trial. Drummond is charged with the July 2025 shooting deaths of 4 people and the subsequent kidnapping of a 7-month-old baby who was later found unharmed on a stranger's lawn. In a handwritten motion, the 29-year-old requested that his attorney be removed, claiming his counsel failed to follow instructions regarding a speedy trial and agreed to gag orders against his wishes. Drummond insists he is making this waiver of counsel knowingly and intelligently. However, because prosecutors are seeking the death penalty, the judge must carefully consider whether Drummond is truly capable of handling such a high-stakes defense, as capital cases usually require attorneys with extensive specialized experience.
Drummond's history includes prior prison time for robbery and threatening jurors, and he is also facing charges for the attempted murder of a prison guard. His defense had previously requested to move the trial out of Lake County due to its small population, a move the prosecution did not oppose. The upcoming hearing on Friday will determine if Drummond will be allowed to proceed pro se. Representing oneself in a death penalty case is extremely rare, and often discouraged by the court due to the complexity of the legal procedures involved. If the judge grants his request, Drummond will be responsible for cross-examining witnesses and presenting his own legal arguments in a case that has shocked the region. The decision will be a pivotal moment in a trial that seeks justice for 4 lives lost and a kidnapped infant.
That wraps up our briefing for today. Thank you for joining us for these important updates. We will see you back here tomorrow for more of the day's top stories.